ML and Tom welcome you to another episode of The First, the Last, the Nerdom. Tonight we have a second appearance special guest who knows a thing or two about the paranormal, ghost hunter Claudia. Join us as we dive into the chilling world of the 2011 horror movie, The Innkeepers. We'll explore its spine-tingling moments, unravel its eerie themes, and share our thoughts on what makes it a standout in the genre, and why Ty West keeps showing up in our recommendations. So grab your ghost hunting gear and get ready for a hauntingly good time. EVPs.
Well,
Hello.
hello, everybody.
Hello.
Tom, I'll let you take it from the top here.
All right, so yeah, we have my sister, who's also gotten into ghost hunting as a little hobby on the side, and I'm here with Mike as well, my forever co-host. So how are things, Claudia, in the ghost world?
Well, first, I have to correct you in ML. They prefer to be called ghost investigators.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. Or I said
Yes.
corrected.
I mean, you know, I think they feel like that comes across as more professional. Like if they're really, if that's their, and I'm just a hobbyist, so you can call me a ghost hunter all you want. But the people that take it very seriously and spend money on equipment and time on their hobby, like where they go out a lot, they like to call it an investigation. Instead of going hunting, they're going investigating, because some nights they might not have anything happen at all. I think the idea that some people go out ghost hunting for kicks, they're not taking it seriously, and they're probably going to find something just because they're out there to be goofy or whatever. So so that's the terminology.
So sort of the faux pas of calling someone a Trekkie as opposed to a Trekker when you're talking about Star Trek.
Right, exactly. That would be a great comparison.
So it's a ghost. Is Ghostbuster totally off the table, or?
I think so.
So everybody enjoys the term Ghostbuster. It's the officialness of the thing, and I'm not making light of this at all, because this was a phenomenon that was very big in the early 00s. Well, actually, you could probably argue late 90s. It kind of caught a strong wind, and then into the 00s, and you had Sci-Fi Channel and its different paranormal investigate. I can't remember the show name, but there were ones that took this subject, all joking aside, they took it very seriously, and then they made a show about that, and that we had previously had you on. You were a second time, two-time, first time special guest, so thank you for being on.
Sure, this is fun.
If you before we get into the main event here, the movie that kind of showcases kind of like it's kind of a fictional window in on what that looks like, but it ties in with what we do here, which is horror, and it is a perfect Halloween movie. That maybe not the very end of Halloween, but for certainly in the roll up to, if you want to get into, you just get into the spirit and the mode. But what you say you're part-time, what drew you to, what's the attraction as a nerd, as we all call ourselves for these wonderful things? What's the draw? Where'd you kind of come in? I think, Tom, I think we kind of covered this a little bit in the first interview, but I just kind of wanted to kind of set the table a little bit and give Claudia some time to.
Sure. The first ghost tour that I ever went on was in Lawrence, Kansas, and my friend wanted to go, and I was like, really? Okay. And then I realized that you can't have good ghost stories without good history. And so I'm a history major. Thomas and I both majored in history. And so that was what was fascinating is, you get into these historical buildings and they have all this history and past. And it's kind of cool to think that maybe an essence of someone who was historical is left a print or however, some people they believe it in all different ways,
Right.
whether it's a full apparition or someone that's just left some of their energy behind. There's so many different theories out there, but one of my favorite things that I heard, and like I said, I'm just a hobbyist, but was this theory that it's like you leave an essence or an energy behind when something traumatic or major, or even if it was the high point and most happy point of your life. And so, Custard was a very popular, of course, historic figure, and he's supposed to haunt Fort Riley here in Manhattan, Kansas, where I'm nearby, and Fort Leavenworth, which is just down the road a little bit, and also Little Bighorn. He's been seen on all three. So that theory kind of makes sense, because if I might get this backwards, so any history majors out there, that I think Fort Riley was his first big gig. And so, they see him in his house, smoking a pipe and just at the, full of his future. And then Leavenworth, they catch him chasing his wife he was newlywed, chasing his wife, playing around. You hear them giggling. And then, of course, the last ride at Little Bighorn. So if that theory's true, that you leave these energy pieces behind, like photographs, that kind of theory, it intrigues me as a history major, that like maybe someone just left left a photograph of themselves, so to speak, an energy signature behind or something like that. But anyway, that's what kind of drew me in, is those sort of things. And then I am a volunteer at the historic Columbian Theatre here in Wamego, Kansas, and they have a building that is made up of parts from the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Banker went to that fair, fell in love with the artwork from that fair, and brought back 2 train cars full of artwork before the fair was set on fire. So we have some of the largest existing pieces. And, it's kind of interesting, because some of these pieces were in buildings that H. Holmes, your first documented serial killer, the idea that he could have walked past some of it, or there's people that come in and do ghost investigations in that building, and that intrigues them too. Is there's a big mirror that we have from the Chicago World's Fair. Could he have looked through that mirror right before he went after his next victim? So yeah,
that's pretty cool. Well, thanks for dropping a lot of heavy stuff on us there. All joking aside,
yes,
that's fascinating. That really does put you in the mood to the mindset of like just touching the same, kind of like the Berlin Wall, like when that came down, like 2 people touched that. That's a little bit more recent, a little bit more lighthearted. Well, not a little bit, same thing. People are people, and we touch things and we experience things, and what could be. I'm not sure where I fall in on the whole ghost thing or not ghost thing or whatever.
Right.
It kind of depends upon the thing I joke with Tom about, is that horror movies have rules, right? So what rules are we talking about?
Right. Well, and I think it depends on whose theories you're going off of, and their school of thought. But anyway, so yeah, that's what pulled me in, was history. And then that building, I want it to remain standing. So I came up with the idea of start having investigations and inviting ghost hunters, ghost investigators in as fundraisers. That's when I got to know some real people that do this as is more than just a side hobby on occasion. So
I'm sure a lot of them are interesting characters in and of themselves.
Of
the
course,
ghost investigators.
Yes, well, of course. I've met some really cool people.
And with that, we're gonna roll into our usual plugging here, and kind of give a little bona fides here for the great intro. I love we'll get into the conversation here momentarily, but we are the FirstLastNerdom. Mike and Mel, me and Tom do this thing for free, and always be free. You can find Tom. Well, actually, I'll let you take over, Tom, for the social medias.
Yeah, yeah. I handle our Reddit account, and yeah, I try to give a shout out to 2B because they're always cool on their subreddit, and then everyone else. I haven't had very much luck. But yeah, they usually ban my ban my promotions, but I'm still chipping away at them. And then I also am on the old Twitter, or X as it's called now, with the FirstLastNerdom promoting our stuff. And Mike, you have some as well.
Indeed, I also am on X as well, 8bit_Inc. And that's you can find me or Tom. Give us a shout out. We'd really love to have a back and forth with the folks out there. Give us a recommendation for you where you want to see us go. And of course, as always, Claudia, thank you again for coming on. There's our second second guest here, second show. We also have Joe Lansdale that Scott Dyson. I was thinking of the next one. Yeah. Excuse me. Forgive me, Scott. I apologize. Please make fun of me on Facebook. I appreciate that. But that, and then of course Joe Lansdale, our interview with him, and our recent Ty West things going into the Innkeeper 2011 flick, Maxxxine, several different things. Of course, we did the Pit, and of course the Penguin. We're only sitting at 7 views, so we would really appreciate it. We would really appreciate it if you could maybe watch a few seconds more of it. But all joking aside, today's movie is the Innkeepers, and I know we had this one on the books. We had kind of been talking about it for quite a while, setting it up, and it kind of just worked out perfectly that we're rolling into Hollywood. Halloween season.
Halloween.
Yeah. So I'll let you go from there, Tom. And what were your thoughts?
Yeah.
And you watched this with us this week as well, Claudia?
Actually, I watched it right before I went to visit Thomas a week ago, so that we could kind of share our thoughts like one-on-one, and then just to get a vibe of what you guys might want to discuss today. So it's been a little bit, but just a couple of weeks ago that I watched it.
Right on.
Yeah, and we've after we did the big trilogy of X, Pearl, and Maxxxine, we were all kind of hyped up on Ty West, me and Mike. So I saw that this was on Canopy as well as Tubi. So I definitely checked it out, and as I was watching it, I found that there is kind of deals with ghost hunting or ghost investigations. So I thought, this would be a good one to rope my sister into, and she's not really into the gory horror movies, and this one was more mood based and just has that creepy vibe to it that I figured she would dig as well. So this would be a perfect fit for bringing her back on. And again, just kind of expand our Ty West library. So I did rewatch it last night to kind of refresh my memory. And Mike, this is your first viewing of it?
Yeah, I had was not aware, aside from IMDb articles and background checks on this movie being a Ty West movie. Never had ran into this before, so this was the first time viewing. What was your? I'm really curious to hear, Claudia's take. So I'm in St. Louis, so we have the Limp Mansion, and they do. I don't know officially if they do any. Like most folks, quite a few years ago, I would listen to the radio. There was a local radio personality here that always did a yearly Halloween kind of show where he would take a few people, put them in the Limp Mansion, and then kind of record, start kickstarting that kind of that genre, I suppose. But with that being said, what did you think of this movie? And as it was, I mean, it's kind of light on the ghost, but it did touch on way back when the EVP, electronic voice phenomena, I think is what it's called. That used to be and I'm just a filthy casual. That the EVP used to be kind of like a buzzword, and like the like when I said the early OOs to mid OOs to all the way up to when this movie aired, this is very popular phenomenon,
Hmm.
and to have this kind of merge, a few different movies have done it not so well, where they kind of bring in the paranormal something or other with it. What were your thoughts on this one and how it did? I'm very curious to spark that conversation and see where we go from there.
Well, I would say that it was Hollywood in that most EVPs, especially when this was filmed, most of your hobbyists or well, even your diehard hobbyist, just take a recorder and record all night, and then they listen. Then they take it back whenever they have time and put headphones on and block air, all their other, close their eyes and sit down on a bed and listen for the sounds, to see if they pick up something that, they may have been having a conversation in the room and they feel like an entity is answering the questions that they're asking each other, or that they're asking them that they couldn't hear with the naked ear, but then they picked it up on their recording. And then, like, I've had people come into the Columbian and do that, the Columbian Theatre, and then they come back and present their evidence and say, this, listen closely. If you hear this, you can hear someone say, "Help me,"
Mhm.
So, but technology keeps changing, and so some of the more high-tech people that have come in more recently have a sound system where they can hear it in real time, the recording,
Really? Oh wow.
and then they can tell if it's reacting, like if the spirit is trying to answer their questions or if they're getting anything, then they can keep going. That seemed to be the equipment these people had, because they had the big microphone out and he goes, "I'm not getting anything." I mean, you know what I mean? He was talking right then and there to them. So he had the most up-to-date, expensive equipment. And maybe, I'm not saying that in 2016 that stuff wasn't out there already. It may have been, but it wasn't mainstream yet.
I think
And
this movie was 2011, so so even
so
further
yeah,
back.
so it wasn't mainstream to have that kind of equipment then.
No,
So
yeah,
so that was interesting.
I don't know what kind of I don't think it's called a shotgun mic, but they had
Yeah, and I've never
any
seen that.
yeah, any movie is good, and it doesn't matter. Any kind of fictional movie, like where you're trying to set the scene, is the props, the gear, the toys, kind of thing, are part. So they had some kind of like a thing, like with there was like one kind of pivotal moment, like where everybody's in the basement, and I won't give away it too much, but if we hit spoiler anything, it'll be toward the end of the show. But there's that one scene, but they have very good close-ups of the equipment, and it's like kind of this big kind of box, this not quite like
Yeah.
maybe a 20th of a lunchbox, what kind of deal, and they had the little peak meter, EV or UV, whatever the hell, kind of to show that there was some. It was dramatic,
Yeah.
obviously, but like the kind of the point though is that the people like kind of go back and they'll show the wavelength, the peaks and the valleys, and then they'll try to
Right.
zoom in, and then try to, and then you'll get the what was it back in the Facebook days, around this time actually, it was the gold or blue dress that you see.
Yeah.
Like online, like if
Yeah.
you said gold or whatever it was, silver, or you saw it as blue, it's kind of like this kind of Rorschach test of things. But
Right.
there are things that are very weird with modern equipment, whether it's from 2024 or 2011, whatever it is, like these artifacts that we see that
Well,
are
and Sam and Dean Winchester used the EMF, a lot. The EMF
now what's
readers.
that? Now what's that?
That's the one that picks up the energy levels.
Oh, okay.
And it would go,
Yeah.
make a lot of
Yeah.
noise when it picks up something, and it would light up. And so ghost hunters use that a lot, and they didn't use those. That I didn't see that. I don't think at all. Yeah. that's like one of the main go-to things to use. And I don't recall seeing that in their hands at all.
Yeah. And speaking of technology, it was one of the fun things of this movie I found was the fact of his Luke's when the main characters his website, it kind of brought back feels of the old websites of the day, with him putting stuff together, and also the environment of online back then. Like now we're all on our phones, and it's very individual. We do share things now, but it brought me back when you had your friends over. You would all run over to the computer, and there's like him showing her the jump scare video that they kind of made for the movie, but we could think of all of those other ones that that got shared around back in the day. And that was the thing of it was still a communal thing of showing your friends these things in real time, as opposed to sending it as a link. And it was a nice kind of snapshot of what online was like back then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I did take I tried to take a screenshot of that scene, like where Claire goes down, or I can't remember the dude's name, but he was
Luke.
Yeah, Luke. Yeah, he was like he had the laptop and the whatever. And she's like, "Hey, leave your laptop so I can like go through." And they actually zoom in on the screenshot, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" And you can barely read the web address.
The URL,
yeah, and all it says is like paranormal investigations, and then it says .webring or something. Like I couldn't find anything. I had the screenshot, but like when I put it in talk mode, and then I try to go back and see it. Of course, copyright or DMC. Whatever, they don't allow you to take a screenshot of so whatever, that's fine. But it was
right.
But that was part of the thing. I guess it's kind of good because like there was also kind of like another, they didn't really do too much with humor in this movie, but you definitely you can tell they were kind of, they could have maybe, because in the bookmark in that particular scene, as she's scrolling down his bookmarks, they're all very untoward and very adult oriented. I'll leave your whatever, but at the very bottom it says "real hauntings," all caps, and then you go to it, and then it's kind of like this thing, and you see Madeline Maller or something. I don't know. I can't remember it.
Yeah,
O'Malley or something. Yeah, something.
Yeah, yeah, and go ahead.
I was just going to say that the thing that threw me was Lena Dunham. She has this little bit scene as the barista that to me added nothing to the film whatsoever. I don't know if she was friends with somebody and decided they wanted her in it. I don't know.
I think it was before she made it big. So it was a kind of an interesting scene, and she became a big flash in the pan, and now she's kind of been canceled and disappeared from viewing. But she was kind of interesting as a kind of a spring up. I think mainly the first part, which I really enjoyed, was kind of building the relationship between Claire and Luke, obviously. And it just was sort of like a slice of life kind of thing. And then also, I guess there's barely there's not a lot of people in the movie, so maybe they wanted to maybe make it not as claustrophobic as it could be if it was just in the hotel. But yeah, I liked the dynamic between Luke and Claire. It seemed like even though it's obviously actors and them acting, there seemed to be like a built-in friendship between the two that seemed very natural in the movie. Like even the little in jokes about hitting the hotel bell, seeing if they could hit it.
Yeah.
There was that comfortableness between the two characters that can only be built up over time. That was there with coworkers. Was really kind of engaged me and kind of built the so what happens after that with the scares and everything. You're invested, or at least I was invested in the characters, so that it meant more as it went on.
Yeah, I would kind of roll back to my a little bit of high praise or of that nature would be this was very economical. This whole movie was very economical, like with how it showed things. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that like some horror films are just gore. They're just,
Yeah.
just I'm good. Thanks. I don't really need to see the inside of a meat packing plant. Thanks very much. But this one just did it when it needed to. It also kept the jump scares to it kept it in the pocket and ready to go. And I think it did very well. And Ty West, I want to kind of comment on as well. Really has this good way, in my opinion, of pulling you in to this world. And I don't know if you caught it or not, but there, I don't know why I became super focused on this, but he does this with the atmosphere of the movie and the way that they respond, and he really pulls you in because there's like one scene like where you kind of go from Claire, the main character, is doing something with the headphones and she's putting them on, and then it kind of goes into her like what she's hearing. Does that very effectively. But the whole thing, it's a very cool Yankee peddler inn. Well, I guess we should say the tagline, if you didn't see it already, was you might not leave or something like that. Kind of like a throwaway tagline, but it did it very well. And her interaction with, I like your the way you put it, Tom, because when you're younger and you're you have like a nothing job or whatever, you that comes across very well. I never worked for a hotel, but you kind of had this little back and forth with your coworker, and if you were the two competent people that worked there, you relied upon each other, and that's what that's another secondary thing. You're not just friends, but I don't really think that they're friends per se, but well, actually, that's not true. I think they are, because he did come back at one point. But,
there's that sense that there's at least they probably don't hang out outside of work, but there's like that deep friendship that you could develop as coworkers that maybe stays there, but is very real. And they capture that very well in this movie. You get that sense they don't appear as actors to you. And I also the fact that they're not well-known actors, that kind of probably helps as well, that you don't know them from anything else. But yeah, there's that sense, and a lot of what Ty West leaves to the imagination, you can read in that Luke has this kind of unrequited love for Claire, that's there, that's kind of under the surface.
I think I always don't know how to take that. Like, it kind of was a little bit of a hand grenade with this one. I think that was probably one of the rare things that they I didn't really see any reason to add it. to be honest, you kind of see this kind of setup coming a little bit, but aside from that, it's a minor. It really has nothing to do with the whole thing. But
I think they did that just so that he was embarrassed and maybe didn't cling to her. Like there was they needed to get her away from him, being able to protect her from going to the basement or to have that strip away that safety net that he provided for her, that she felt she was totally alone at that point. But I liked it.
I forgot about that. That's what you're talking about. That one scene, like where it kind of makes that whole kind of trench a little bit deeper, right?
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. But I think that was the ploy they were going for. It may not have made sense, but they had to get her away from him somehow, and whether it was a fight or a disagreement, or, well, in this case, he admitted his love for her while they were drunk. Kind
of half-assed, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's kind of a underlying they don't explain the history, which obviously you wouldn't in there wouldn't be this exposition scene where they tell the backstory of these two characters. So you kind of have to pick it up on kind of surface level and what they were doing. But I got the sense that he sort of got into this whole ghost thing as because he mentioned, there's a lot of money in this. So he probably made this website and kind of got into he probably got hired on because, he was looking for a job. And the both of them are sort of kind of lost in the ether as far as careers go. But yeah, he probably got this job, and then he found out about the ghost there, and he kind of built up his website, and it was all kind of maybe not, he didn't go into it with the love of ghost investigation, but as maybe something that he could make money at. And then she gets on and falls in love with this ghost hunting thing, and it's sort of their thing, and then he finds an attraction to her. So they have this bond for this, but they're going at it at two different angles, So, but they have that bridge together. And so then that bridge is tested in this movie, and that's kind of where they kind of break apart at that point. But and then she goes all in, and he realizes that he's invested in her as opposed to the ghost investigation, which I thought was a very that sort of is what kind of draws me to the movie, those interpersonal relationship. And we haven't even talked about the actress, the paranormal lady in it, that provides a different lightning rod in this movie. But I really enjoyed all those personal interactions. I think the core ghost story at its heart doesn't have a whole lot to it. But I really enjoyed those personal interactions that I could kind of dig my teeth into.
well, they kind of forced the artificialness of the last weekend. Essentially, this beautiful old building is going to become a parking lot, which would bring you to tears if you saw this thing and it needed to be a little bit, a little bit of help, but kind of sets the scene. And I guess that's true. I guess I forgot about the scene where she's like in the middle of the night, middle of her shift or whatever, and she goes exploring or whatever and scares the hell out of herself. And later on we find that it's not in her mind. It is very much real in a certain as real as things can be in a movie. But you see that, and then you kind of see that, like, where that is true, because she goes up to his door in duress, and he is, as he passed out, whatever, hey, what do you want? And then she's like, never mind. Oh yeah, I remember what I saw on this guy's bookmark list. Maybe this is a good idea to, seek comfort in this area, because she's very good at detecting bad decisions up to a point. Let's put it that way.
Well, and I think it's kind of interesting, because the other time I was on the show was to discuss The Haunting with you, the 1963 movie. And there's some parallels between these two films.
This is true.
There's these people pulled to this building for various reasons, all coming at it from a different aspect. There's the gentleman guest that's there for his reason, and there's the psychic guest that's there for her reason, and then there's the mom that's mad at her husband, and like they're all there for different reasons. But this hotel/house is not what it seems. There's some energy, bad juju there, right? And I think it plays on each character in both of those movies in different ways. And there's the Luke, and I cannot remember the gentleman. There's a gentleman in The Haunting that both don't believe in any of this stuff when they go in, and by the end they do, and they can't believe the tragedy that they've just witnessed with the young ladies that they've tried to befriend or save.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and then
grief.
Yeah, really. There's something about those ghost movies that it gets more, those type of horror movies kind of get more into the emotional aspects and the personal inner workings. Like so like with Claire, with her looking into ghosts. It sort of kind of parallels the ghost situation because the ghost is sort of trapped in time, reliving these horrific uh, moments, and Claire is sort of kind of disembodied herself. She doesn't have a career path. She's kind of aimless. Both her and Luke are facing unemployment after this weekend, and neither of them are talking about getting another job or seeking other employment. They're sort of at the end, but they're still kind of drifting along. They don't have a direction, and so they're sort of kind of like trapped in time along with the ghost. And she's maybe trying to not vocalize it, but she's trying to kind of latch down or try to explain the unexplainable, because she can't explain the unexplained in her life. That she doesn't know where she's going. So maybe if she latches down on this ghost and can solve this mystery, that maybe she could help. That'll help kind of resolve the mystery of her life as well. But then she gets trapped up in the the whole tragedy of it.
Well, in the haunting, yeah, I was going to say in the haunting too, like those people were paid to be there because they're directionless and at a moment in their lives. And then the psychic in this movie and the lesbian in the other movie present themselves one way at the beginning, and then their truths are revealed later.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
Yeah. So she has something kind of hidden within her. Yeah, which is done by the actress Kelly McGinnis. Did I say that right? Yeah.
Or is it McGillis? I don't know.
McGillis. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike. I was just going to say, and I think this was one of her last movies, was all I was going to say.
Really? Well,
before she retired from acting.
It does, from that standpoint of like a kind of lowest common denominator Clerks kind of scene, I suppose. Like where you're 20s something, you're in between this and that. Don't quite know. We've all kind of been there. You can, I guess you can really kind of layer that over it, because we've all been there. And this is, like I said, I had my notes here. I wanted to pull that into the mix and talk about it, but there was what that was. Sorry, let me kill that web browser.
That was a ghost. I'm sorry. Yeah,
what the hell that was?
There's spirits.
Or gremlins.
Gremlins for sure. Well, we did do the Twilight Zone, so gremlins are a part of this thing that we do every week. But well, the main point being, it had really good pacing. I think it over exaggerated some points when it didn't need to, but that's nitpicking. To me, like, this was a solid hit for the genre. I have no doubt why I missed it. It was a very small budget make, and it made its money for sure. It just didn't quite make, maybe another 10 years and there'll be some kind of a cult following for this, but it hit the notes very well. I famously, like, I kind of tuned out to horror movies for a long time because it was just like nothing. For a long time, it just seemed it was like Saw 2 through 15. So I'm making fun, but it's like I don't really want to see that. I want to be. Of course, I didn't really have the appreciation I did back then. But this worked very well, from the angry mom to everybody doesn't really want to be here. They're just it's a forced. It's like the only spot that you can go to. It's kind of like if you're in a bad mood and you got dumped and you got off work, you're gonna go to a bar. like these kind of like stereotype places you would go with nowhere left to go. You had the angry mom and the kid. You had the psychic who was in town for the convention. Not on the upswing of life, definitely down the downswing of life. and everybody kind of wore their another thing I think they did very well in the acting was they showed who they were and where they were at in life without kind of any commentary around it.
Yeah, no exposition. Yeah.
Yeah. Besides the interactions with the characters, which kind of gave you a natural, good sawing effect to get down to the point. And it made people a little bit more human, I think, because everybody's kind of short with each other at certain points. And then you kind of had like, I'm in need, I'm in help, I need help, which is Sarah Paxton did very well. And kind of set up the scene of like something would happen and she would go running away, zoinks, Scooby, we got to get out of here. Not quite that campy. I'm being a little bit facetious, but
yeah, and I heard that I was reading some of the little known facts about it, but yeah, Sarah wasn't able to scream very well. She had a comical scream, so they kind of had to work around that in the movie. Before we started recording a week or two back, Claudia told me a little bit about the history of how it got made and why it got made, which if she doesn't mind retelling that'd be kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So when Ty West was making, what was that name of that movie?
House of the Devil. House of the Devil, I think.
His crew stayed in that inn, and they were having paranormal activity happen to them while they were making the other movie, and that paranormal activity in that inn inspired him to do this movie.
Yeah, and I heard that they when they filmed this movie, they all stayed at the hotel. So Sarah said that it was fun because she could be down on set in 5 minutes because she was
right.
They all kind of lived there, and evidently the younger people of the crew had a party at night, and so I think there was some tension between the older and younger crew people in the hotel.
Which that probably played into the whole mood of the movie anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a haunted hotel. They did a haunted hotel in a haunted hotel.
Exactly. Well, at least nobody. One of the things with these horror movies, sometimes they're jinxed or have bad stuff happen to them on set or whatever. But I didn't hear anything about this movie, so maybe they were good ghosts and the spirits of this movie. But yeah, one of the things that was kind of set in the back of my mind is, okay, this hotel's closing and probably on the block for demolition, as Mike said. Are the ghosts aware of this? Was Madeline aware of this, and did it cause it to amp up the vibe of the haunting towards the end there? And then that was that what brought the older gentleman, the last guest, to come in.
It did kind of seem like there was some kind of a ritual or a tradition going on, not from the standpoint of the humans involved. But from the standpoint of those that are on their last end, their dead end, and we're about 45 minutes or so we're probably tipping over in the spoiler territory. So if you are so inclined, we will be probably talking about spoilers from this point. But there was a gentleman who came in, and the whole thing of the whole premise of the hotel was that they had first floor, second floor, but everything above that was stripped down or whatever, third floor. Mm-hmm. This gentleman checked in, very late arrival, and he wasn't interested in the fittings or the thing, and had a very eerie... He
had a room that he wanted to go to, yeah.
Well, he also kind of came in like half dead anyway, right? So... not going into too much of that, but he has a certain kind of thing, and the beautiful thing I think about this movie that it did very well was it does something that modern films do too much of, or excuse me, it does something that modern films do way too. It does not do something that modern films do, which is tell you every little bit and every little detail and every little thing This one was, it left like, who's this guy? He's older. He obviously has some kind of connection with this. Is it connected to, the Madeline ghost character you see at this point in the film, or is it related to something? You don't quite know, and I love that for that, because it leaves you like, well, I know it's gonna happen, and then you kind of go along and you see this thing that happens that I don't really, anybody want to have an opinion on the second half of the movie? What would you think? How it compares to other genre or other films like The Haunting? I guess I suppose is the one that we did talk about.
I would say, to me, this movie had the feel of a modernized Hitchcock era film. I mean, really, it had that. The only thing it was missing was being black and white. I mean,
which it could have been shot in black and white. It has it didn't have vibrant colors to it, but yeah, it would fit right in with it being black and white.
I mean, other than being in modern times, yeah, with computers and whatnot. But yeah, and so, in Hitchcock's time and stuff, you didn't hear about people doing ghost investigations so much.
Sure.
Back then, it was more mysticism. Houdini in the turn of the century was, trying to debunk mysticism. There was churches based on mysticism, and I found out there was one in Topeka recently, but where, they believed that people just passed on the other side of the veil, and that so the ghosts were just people, the spirits that they didn't go to heaven or hell. They didn't believe in a heaven or hell. They believed you stayed on earth on the other side of the veil. And there was a big movement in the late 1800s, early 1900s with that belief system. And that's when mediums and all that sort of thing and connecting with your loved ones on the other side of the veil became big business and stuff. And so, and ties into, we have a medium in this movie too, but so that was the cool thing to me, is they didn't just rely on the ghost investigation.
No.
They brought in that medium. So you had two sides of the paranormal. And a lot of times they're together. I have gone to public investigations where there are psychics or mediums. The difference being, mediums tend to talk to the dead. Psychics tend to pick up energies and can tell you about things that are going to happen, and they might pick up on the dead, but that doesn't necessarily mean that mediums pretty much that's their gig. And so the Kelly McGillis character was your old school medium. So yeah.
So yeah, it was nice that they had like the ghost investigator who's kind of jaded and doesn't believe. You have the paranormal person, and you have the true believer in Claire that wants to believe. But yeah, it is kind of a fascinating kind of a slice of different aspects to it. I guess the one thing that I didn't like with the first viewing, and then in the second viewing, I started appreciating. There's like the on the nose red hair, the on the nose things, like maybe they could have blended it in a little bit better. Like when she goes outside to throw out the trash, and she sees the little back thing door to the underground, and she opens it up, and the birds flies out, and then she locks it in with the lock. I go, okay, well, that's obviously going to play into later on in the movie. but there's sort of like I don't know, kind of a balance in the sort of eventuality to the movie that kind of plays with it. I don't know how successful the ending is. I kept wanting something a little bit more. Although on the second viewing, I kind of appreciated it more. Kind of fell into the whole kind of the balance of a ghost story. That's Luke's going to tell that in the future to people, and people are going to remember that. And she's sort of like the beginning of a new ghost story, It has all the hallmarks of a ghost story. So I think if they went a little bit too broad, that aspect would have been kind of lost. But she's kind of become that little jump scare that that people are going to talk about in the future. She maybe will not live on as a ghost, but she's going to live on. Her spirit's going to live on with the retelling of this later on. So yeah. The long way of saying, I think I'm starting to appreciate the ending better than my first viewing of it.
Yeah.
I will.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike. I was just going to say, I'll circle back to that comment you made about the fact that it's being torn down, playing into it. Yes, definitely. And hanging out with the people that I've hung out with that do this sort of thing, they feel like any kind of change in a building can increase the activity. So, I mean, I'm fairly skeptical myself, and you're supposed to be when you go into these things to try to disprove it, right? If you're true to your beliefs on this. And so but when they were remodeling the Oz Museum here in Wamego, it's in a really old building that's supposed to be haunted. And there was not 1 week where I was walking past the building at night and there was a light on upstairs that I'd never seen before. And third night in, I went to them because that's their storage area. So nothing should be on. I was like, there is a light that's being left on up there. So we went upstairs. There was no light fixture in that room. There was no light in that room. And it was during construction. And then the week after, it went away. And I freaked the employees out. But anyway, because I had photos. I showed them the photos and they're like, and then the next week I took the same place. Every day for a week I took photos. And then the next week I couldn't get it. So.
That's kind of a perfect summation of this whole thing, which is it kind of leaves you with, we won't spoil what happens. This is a really good movie. It's not the best. It is by far not the worst. Like, we have covered movies that are terribly bad, that are so bad they're good. This I think it does a very good job of what it presents. It takes you for a ride. You get kind of dumped off into this gas station that you've seen before, kind of thing, kind of phenomenon. And you kind of go from there. You kind of like, okay, I think I know what's going to happen. But maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. It did take me, it did surprise me. I think. It is like I said, it's a perfect starter Halloween, a starter or midway through if you're going up to Halloween. If this is your favorite movie, obviously you're going to watch it on Halloween. But this is a kind of movie that kind of gets you in the mood of it has the capability of kicking you off into other aspects of horror, right? So we covered The Haunting, very classic, rendition of like what tropes that came in the future. Some did it justice. This one did. I think it did very well. As well as it can be expected. I mean, it's not. It doesn't spend too much time. The whole thing is in the hotel. I mean,
and their budget wasn't big. You can tell that.
Yeah. It was all within. Yeah, they used everything to the fullest that they could, and a lot of times if you have a small budget, it's going to look cheap. But they made it look. They made it look lived in and made it look real. And they did a really good job of that. And one of the only thing I ask of a horror movie that's sort of like this, a ghost movie even, is that the hair on the back of my neck or arm stand up at least once during the movie, and it definitely did in this. So kudos for that. And I will say one of the standout scenes was there's a was she dreaming, or did it really happen, where she was in her bed and Madeline maybe gave her a little visit there.
Right.
I think that was done very well, and then it was kind of broken up with a little laugh at the end when she run down without her pants and traumatized the kid. We have to say that she inadvertently really gave this kid some trauma. She gave him the creepy ghost story and sort of the shock of her running downstairs. So he has maybe not ghost stories in his future, but
yeah,
but some remembrances as well.
Yeah, her character is plagued with a sensibility of having tone deafness when it comes to certain things. But again, this movie isn't, you're not like seeing the absolute background of who Claire is and what does Claire think and who is Claire as a person. She's a character that plays in the movie, and how far you go in or out of it depends on you, I suppose. But I think it's a perfectly serviceable, great movie. If you like horror movies, but you're not in love with horror movies, and you don't want to do the Friday the 13th or the slashers or gore, this would probably be a perfect mid-level, Goldilocks.
Yeah, I think
it's just fine. Or The Haunting for that. You probably get more mileage out of The Haunting because it's a classic in my opinion. But this one is perfectly adequate for what it does. Again, Ty West knows what he's doing.
Sort of a starter level horror movie. If you have young kids, maybe young teenagers that are really into horror, but you don't want them to expose them to like a really gory movie. This one's sort of a fun one, but a kid that's not ready for horror, it will give them some nightmares, obviously.
And I will just add, since you did add the ghost hunting part of it, I think anyone that does ghost investigations as a serious hobby will be disappointed that they had no tools. They were investigating with nothing. They didn't.
Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed. Yeah,
purely hobby. Purely again, this is kind of like it checks the box for that a little bit, but not quite.
I have more
hardcore
equipment than. I have more equipment than they have, and I've only bought stuff so that I can help out in investigations when they have a lot of people. So I have extra stuff. I bought some stuff on Amazon. So I'm, anyone that's even doing it a little bit of a hobby would have some way to communicate with the dead, whether it was a ghost box, which is AM, FM, the radio where you cycle through the channels, one of those boxes, so that they can use radio airwaves to speak, and that was available back in even 2011. The EMF reader and then some of them use temperature readers, like you do for construction to read a room, and they use dowsing rods like the Native Americans to communicate, and pendulums. I mean, the medium had one, but they didn't. So that was all kind of, interesting.
Yes. Speaking of which, I got a little pendulum here. I think there may be some spirits here.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
They kind of roll through all of this very quickly. But speaking of that, I wanted to bring in a little bit of reality and the Arkansas. You had mentioned that in Arkansas that there was a 2024 normal meeting here of the. What is this?
It's a paranormal expo. And I would say if you are in any state in the United States, most of them have them. In fact, the little theater that I'm part of here in Wamego, the Columbian Theatre, is going to have theirs January 18th of this year. But what they do is they have a group of people that do all sorts of things that have to do with the paranormal. So you're going to have your Bigfoot enthusiast. You're going to have your UFO enthusiast. You're going to have psychics and mediums and people that do the investigation, go into these old haunted buildings trying to find evidence that it's haunted. looks like there's maybe a priest there, so that there may be someone that's done an exorcisms.
Well,
there are people that go in and
there we go.
And Carol Pate, she's been on like 2020 and all the news shows back when Thomas and I were little kids, because she found some missing people that no one else could find. Like she did her whole psychic thing, and she's part of the Psychic Missing Persons Network. So she came and talked a few times at UALR, University of Arkansas at Little Rock, when I was at school, and I took a class on meditation. So yeah, I mean, so if that's your kind of jam, and usually these kind of conventions, they're a bunch of hobbyists, and they usually give the money to an organization. That particular one is for a military museum to keep it running. That's cool. The one that's in my little hometown of Wamego is for that theater that's full of the 1893 Chicago World's Fair items. So, so that's always kind of fun. So if watching a movie like The Innkeeper gets you kind of curious about all of that sort of stuff, those kind of places are kind of a fun toe dip, because there's so many subject matter, so much subject matter that's presented at those. And like I said, they have them all over the United States. I'm getting ready for fun. Two of my girlfriends wanted to do something spooky, so we're going to the Sally House in Atchison, and it's been covered on many of these ghost hunting shows as being haunted. So I'll have to let Thomas know how it goes.
Absolutely.
Yep. You make sure you don't disappear with the spirits. But yeah, also I would like to recommend Red Letter Media. They're sort of a sister channel to us, but they have no idea about us because we're such small fries. But yeah, they cover they like to review movies and talk about movies. And one of the guys on it, Mike, he has this sort of a fascination with paranormal or investigation, and they just released a few days ago. They went to the Blitzka Axe Murder House, and they did a show prior to this where they went over all the investigating equipment. There's also everything that Claudia said, but they also had a thing where it would cycle through like words. Spirits are supposed to tell it, make it say certain things or whatever.
A Frank box.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, they had all the accoutrement. So they wanted to go to this house and do a real investigation with no fluff, nothing, not to cast dispersion on any show that's on television, but obviously you kind of have to amp stuff up on TV to get people to come back week after week. So whatever shenanigans might or might not happen, none of that happens on this. And the show kind of, I just recently watched it. It's fun, but yeah, without the kind of hyped up thing, I see why they hype stuff up in the television shows, because we're all human. We want that sort of payoff. So when you do a true investigation, it doesn't kind of live up to the hype. Although the Red Letter Media guys are always funny, and it was very enjoyable just watching them kind of fumble around, and they run into all sorts of kind of mishaps, and they do find some weird, maybe spooky-esque stuff that happened in the house. But yeah, it's a definite recommend if you like, especially if you like those guys, and any attention we can do towards those guys is great.
Absolutely. And we'll include also your local historic what we covered in the our first meeting with you, Claudia, as well, down in the show notes when we publish. And can't say this enough. All this stuff is kind of like America's original history, right? So World's Fair, whatever it is, like you, especially on the East Coast for sure. There's some stuff on the West Coast, like no doubt, and of course the Midwest as well. Whether it's Missouri down to Arkansas or Louisiana for sure. There are different little subcultures that are fun, and whether you are into being scared or not or whatever, you're never gonna be at a loss when you take into the history of what that building is or what happened. Good grief. St. Louis hosted many different nations' flags at one point in history. Like from the 1700s on, we had like 5 or 6 different nations' flags over our area. So it's just really kind of cool that you don't have to go thousands of miles away to Europe or wherever. You can go, and I love that short little trip, whether it's here or in Tennessee or wherever it is, like wherever you can find it. That kind of thing is so important. So we'll make sure we have those links down below. But I think we're kind of rolling up here on the caboose. I'll get the panel's opinion here. Is this a recommend or no recommend for getting into the spirit of Halloween as we are on the doorstep, as it were?
I never run across a Ty West movie. It definitely intrigued me about some of his other work. I give it a thumbs up. Even to my ghost investigating friends, I think they would give it a pass for the non-accuracy, for just the fun thrills and a good basic ghost story.
Yeah, and I'll say, yeah, it's sort of like I said, it's one of Ty West's first movies. It just shows you how confident and competent he is with horror, and he's only but grown. I could kind of like parallel him with another guy that started out about that same time as Eli Roth. Eli Roth has had more misses than hits, whereas Ty West continually has improved, and with his latest trilogy, he really kind of comes into his own and takes everything he's learned from, say, this movie and has applied it to his now movies, and he's just a phenomenal talent at this point. So it's nice to see where he's come from and what solid base he's coming from.
Yeah, this is going to be. I can't wait to share this with my kiddos. My son, I know he's going to be on the periphery of not caring, but I know he'll get drawn in. And my daughter, I think she'll love this very. But it's a fun time. If you don't want something over the top horror, this is it. It's very good. I agree with Tom. We covered Ty West. We are certified fans by now. But with that, I think we anything else anybody wants to share before we dip out here?
No, just thanks for having me back. It was fun.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. Indeed.
Yep,
well,
definitely.
I've been Mike.
I'm Tom, and we had Claudia, and stay spooky out there.
The first, the last, Nerdom. In dark we find our kingdom. Horror, love, eternal dance, fantasy and sci-fi trance.